Hello and welcome to Cut Through the Noise, the podcast that helps business leaders increase sales through clearer, smarter communications that elevate your brand. I'm your host, Aisling O'Rourke, founder of The Communications Coach, and you're listening to the final episode of season 13. This season, we have been diving into something that, let's be honest, everybody is talking about and loads of us are curious about, but very few people in business are actually using it well, and that is artificial intelligence. Now, before we get started today, I want to say something that is very important to me. And this season, it was never designed to convince you to use AI, nor was it intended to suggest that AI is the answer to every business challenge. Instead, this season was about helping you think differently. Think differently about your communications, about your workflows, think differently about your visibility, and ultimately think differently about how technology can support you, your business, but without overwhelming you. Because despite all the headlines and all the hype, and we're in an AI bubble at the moment, I still fundamentally believe that communications is about people. The human factor is still key when it comes to using artificial intelligence in your business. Now, why am I so passionate about AI? Why do I talk about it? Well, it's because for me, AI is personal. You see, I'm kind of a cyborg. If you're a Trekkie, you'll understand the reference. I'm type 1 diabetic. I have been now for 37 years. I was diagnosed 2 weeks after my third birthday. So I was diagnosed when you had to check your blood sugars by a little finger prick, maybe 10 times a day, easily. I had to get injections at set times, several times a day by a syringe. The technology eventually evolved and allowed us to use these disposable pens that I thought were super cool. And then we got continuous glucose monitors and insulin pumps. And now today, I have an insulin pump system and a continuous glucose monitor, which is currently here, that's managed by AI. You see, AI helps me manage my blood glucose levels, and it has genuinely improved, I believe, my quality and longevity of life. But despite the fact that I use it every single day, I do not blindly trust it. Technology can still fail, systems make mistakes, algorithms can get things wrong. Ultimately, the responsibility for managing my health lies with me. And that is a principle that I encourage you to adopt when it comes to using artificial intelligence. At the end of the day, whether it's in your healthcare, your workflow, or your personal life, yes, AI can support us. Yes, AI can assist us. It can even help us move faster. But it cannot replace the human factor. It cannot replace your gut instinct, your judgment, and your editorial critique. You see, sometimes when I speak with business owners about how they approach their communication strategy, they're focusing in on producing content and not building trust. Communications begins with setting good foundations of building trust. It's about understanding people. It's about making good decisions. It's about having an overarching strategy to help you have a consistent visibility, customer satisfaction, and a good teamwork as well. Communications is the foundation of any successful business. It's not just about using AI to help you put up a couple of posts on Instagram or LinkedIn. So today I want to look back over the entire season and review what we've discussed and take out my key points from it that I really want you to take away today. The season, really isn't about AI. It's about communication. AI is simply the vehicle for the conversation. And in the very first episode of this season, we focused in on the most important lesson of all, and that's to stop treating AI like a novelty and start treating it like an actual system. We talked about workflows, bottlenecks, and identifying the repetitive communication tasks that consume our time every week. And look, even if you stop and think now, I'm sure there's a couple of things that come to mind that you'd have to do every single day of the week that if you could just reduce, let somebody else take care of it, you'd save minutes that could lead to hours over a week, a month, a year. Because when you choose a tool, you have to understand the problem that you're trying to solve. So when you're creating a communication strategy, you look at identifying for the consumer, your client base, what problem it is you're trying to solve for them to make you marketable. And it's the same with AI. Before you choose your tool, you have to understand the problem that you want it to help you solve. So many of us, and look, I deal with magpie syndrome every day of the week. I'm the worst for it because I love technology. I find these new tools and I want to subscribe to everything, but it's not really sustainable from, well, a financial perspective, but even from a business perspective, because you lose a lot of time going down the rabbit holes of figuring out new tools. You need to first forget about the tools. What's the problem that you're looking to solve? In episode 2, I was joined by Roisin Bennett from the AI team, and we focused in on creating workflows, automations, and AI agents. Now, Roisin believes that 2026 is about the AI agent. I think it's about the AI agent, yes, but I think it's about using AI in a more ethical way and not just like some people are using it to well, to churn out AI slop and to slash staffing numbers. So, let's call a spade a spade. But perhaps the most valuable insight from that particular conversation was that AI is not the starting point, that your starting point is looking at the processes. So, if we look at the first 2 episodes of this season, really we were looking at workflows and how these tools can help streamline things for you, because often a lot of the time that's wasted in work and wasted when it comes to communications is hopping between different systems. And if you can actually create a workflow for yourself, that will save you so much time and allow you think a bit more clearly. It'll just give you headspace. And that's something money can't buy. If you're listening to this episode and are beginning to realize that actually in your business, communications is one of those areas of your business that is getting pushed further and further down the priority list, well, you might enjoy the Clarity Collective. It's my monthly mastermind designed for independent business owners who want to communicate more consistently, market themselves more effectively, and stop reinventing the wheel every time they sit down to create new content. We talk strategy, visibility, systems, and practical implementation, including how AI tools can support what you are already doing. You can find all the details at thecommunicationscoach.ie. And now back to today's episode. Now, in episode 3, we looked at the biggest fears that business owners have when it comes to AI. And that is this whole AI slop thing. I really wanted to focus in on how you can use AI without losing your voice. And that's where, look, the human factor comes in here. Because regardless of what AI tool you choose or not to use, your lived experience matters. Your tone of voice, your unique perspective on the world that you're working in, that all matters. And that's where you can use AI to support your words and your voice, not replace it. So that's why it's really important to think about your stories, your perspective, your judgment, because they're all the things that make all of your communications unique. You know, we still have to do the real work. We can't allow these tools to write for us because then we're giving them a bit too much power and we're taking away the uniqueness of ourselves, our brands. And look, I always say in the outro of Cut Through the Noise for, I think, every episode of the 13 seasons, that I want to help you stand out from the sea of sameness and cut through the noise, well, that's never been more important than it is now. And I really want you to think about that. So, in episode 4, I took you, well, behind the scenes, I guess, of my own business and how I actually use AI in practice on a daily basis for for work purposes, not just health purposes. And I talked about how I use it in working with my podcast editor, Amanda Fitzgerald, in creating content for presentations, and even with client work, and even simply like using Google Tasks to automatically look at my client notes and go, yes, I promised to do A, B, C, and D. That automatically gets added to my workflow today. And that's really simple, but very effective. You see, AI works best when it helps us to reduce repetitive tasks, not when it replaces strategic thinking. And that's so important. And I know I've said that a couple of times this episode, but I'm repeating myself because I fundamentally believe in the importance of using our own judgment, our own editorial expertise when it comes to creating communications that we want to represent us and our brand. Then in episode 5, we looked at AI and how it's changing search. Now, there is a shift ongoing from SEO to AEO, and you're going from search engine optimization to artificial intelligence engine optimization. Now, it's currently referred to in the main as AEO. Some are referring to it as AIO, artificial intelligence optimization, and some are referring to it as GEO. Quite frankly, I wish we could all settle on one phrase because we've got enough jargon going around. But regardless, I'm going to use AEO for this purposes. So artificial intelligence engine optimization. And what you need to know to ensure that your website remains visible in a world where people are increasingly asking AI tools for recommendations and answers. And making sure that your online presence is AI friendly is important. So even if you're not using an AI tool to help you create slide decks or social media content, or even to create transcripts from maybe a presentation, a talk, a podcast episode, other people on the internet are using AI tools to find services like yours. So even if you want to, and I totally get it. So even if you do want to pretend AI is a fad and it's going to go away and you want to stick your head in the sand, I totally understand why. Just double check that your website is AI friendly, because you don't want to miss out on good business leads by not being searchable by whether it's ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude with Anthropic, a Copilot from Microsoft, whatever the tool is. You do want those bots, those tools to be able to find you and the services that you offer, because otherwise you're going to lose out on business. And that's not a risk any of us can take. I want you to think about trust, because ultimately the most important question is not what AI can do, it's what we should allow it to do. And ethics, privacy, copyright, judgment, and responsibility are all your job. And there's something that I really want to hammer home today, and that's regardless of the size of your business, if you are operating within the constraints of the European Union, so if you're in one of the 27 member states, the EU AI Act applies to you and your business, even if you are a solopreneur. So that means that you must adhere to the rules as they are rolled out. The EU AI Act, in the scheme of things, is relatively new. It is evolving. Some deadlines have been moved, as happens when new legislation is being created. Ultimately, it requires you to be transparent with your audience in how you use AI, and you are responsible for ensuring that if you do have a team that uses AI that are on your payroll as staff, well, then you are responsible for ensuring that they are trained in how to use AI responsibly. If you're listening to this and you're in a corporate situation, and your employer has decided that because they are, for argument's sake, a Microsoft based company, and Copilot is their preferred AI tool, but for whatever reason you don't like it. So on your personal device, you have been doing work on ChatGPT or Google Gemini. Just for argument's sake, that is referred to as shadow AI usage. As an employee, that means you're not protected by your employer because your employer has decided that this is the platform that we're using and this is what we're protecting within our company and our reputation. And you are in breach of your employer's rules if you choose to do that. So it's a risk. Okay. It is a risk. And as an employer, you need to make that very clear to your employees that, look, we've bought into this. We've hired somebody to come in and train you in how to use it. So this is the platform we're buying into. This is the one that we've gone to our legal team. We have our AI policy in place in work. We are adhering to the EU AI Act. So that's shadow AI usage, which is happening in workplaces all over the world. That's something that you need to be really careful about. Secondly, at the end of the day, this all comes down to your reputation, and your reputation remains your responsibility. It doesn't matter how sophisticated the technology becomes over time. It's all down to us as human beings to be responsible for how it's used and to make an informed decision as to whether or not we use artificial intelligence, and if we do, how we use it. When I look back at this season of Cut Through the Noise, I keep returning to the same conclusion that AI itself is not the story, communication is. AI is just another tool that we can use to help us communicate more effectively when used thoughtfully and responsibly. At the end of the day, the goal is not about removing yourself or your team from the process. It's about creating more space for the work that only you can do. Your expertise, your stories, your relationships, your creativity, and again, your judgment. That's where you can differentiate yourself from competition. That's where you can stand out from the sea of sameness. AI can help us organize our thoughts, but we can't allow it to replace our thinking. And trust matters in communications. And if we allow an AI tool to replace our voice, to replace our thinking, that is a breach of trust. At the end of the day, when I'm looking for somebody to do business with, I want to be able to trust that they are who they say they are, that their business is based in Ireland or wherever they claim to be based, that if they're using AI, that I know how that they're using it. And we have to think about these things going forward in this evolving space. We always have to maintain that the human oversight here and keeping in touch with things like the EU AI Act as they evolve. It's one of these things where, unfortunately, no one's an expert yet because it's not been around long enough. The responsibility remains ours as communicators, business owners, and leaders in our industries to make sure that we're being responsible in how we're using it. The way I look at it is that the future isn't about human versus AI. It's about AI assisting humans and helping us be more efficient and more thoughtful in how we work. The businesses that grow and evolve over the coming years aren't necessarily going to be the ones that spend the most money on the newest tools. They're still going to be the businesses that communicate clearly, the ones that build trust, the ones that understand their audiences, and the ones that continue to think critically. At the end of the day, it's always been about communications, whether you call it storytelling, public relations, whatever tool you want to use. Communications and business has always been and will always be about people. It's about that connection that remains a uniquely human skill. So if this episode was helpful, I would appreciate you giving it a positive review on your preferred podcast app. I'd really appreciate you sharing it with a business friend or colleague who is perhaps AI curious but AI confused. And remember that AI is not a party trick, it's a process tool. And if you use it with intention, it becomes powerful. This season was designed to help you think differently about AI and how you're using it as part of your communications strategy. And if you're ready to do that work in a supported and structured way, you can book a discovery call with me to explore how communications coaching and my communications mastermind, the Clarity Collective, will be of use to you. A no pressure call just to chat about whether we're the right fit for you. You can email us on hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie or visit thecommunicationscoach.ie. And don't worry, all of those links are in the show notes below. Thank you for listening to this episode and every episode. I really do appreciate you supporting Cut Through the Noise over the last 13 seasons. In a noisy world, clear, confident and authentic communication is what allows you and your business to stand out from the sea of sameness and cut through the noise.